This is a picture of me and my family circa 1988. Does it remind you all of the horrible family pictures you had to take as a child? Certainly does for me. I was born in the Dominican Republic, and I came to the United States when I was 7 years old, about 6 months after that photo was taken, actually. But as a child, I was really quiet and shy, which may surprise anybody who knows me. And I always made sure to stay in the background of things, avoid any sort of confrontation or challenge, something that was really hard to do, having 4 siblings. But I remember being really perceptive of the things around me that just did not feel right. The things that I didn't have a language for yet, I didn't have words for them yet, but I remember feeling something wrong. Like on 3 Kings Day, for example, for a few years, my dad made the sacrifice of buying his youngest daughter's Barbie dolls for 3 Kings Day. I could still picture the tears in my sister's eyes as she would open her box to find a black doll, while me and my other sisters would get blonde white dolls. Even at the young age of 5 and 6, I understood there was something wrong with my sister not being happy with her blackness. Growing up in America, as an immigrant child whose second language was English, gave me a different life perspective that I am certain is different than maybe others who were born here. I still think of my best friend growing up making fun of my accent, especially the word I said, chocolate. I used to say chocolate. For the life of me, I just could not say it right. And she thought it was hilarious. We still laugh about it till this day. But I was very lucky to grow up in the Bronx, where my entire neighborhood was diverse, where the people around me, my neighbors, my friends, came from all different religions, all different backgrounds, all different cultures. And I had the experience of being part of that. Like most immigrant families do, we settled in areas where we found commonalities with our neighbors, but we also were exposed to differences. I still very fondly remember walking up and down the streets of Marble Hill, being able to find foods from all over the world. I mean, of course, we had our American staples. We had our local McDonald's, our local chicken spots. We had our local, the delis, the bodegas that had food. But within feet, within walking distance, within blocks, you could find food from anywhere in the world. You had Jamaican food restaurants. You had Colombian food, Peruvian food, Indian food, Dominican food, and of course, our beloved Chinese food restaurants. We were what you call a melting pot. One of my earliest school-age memories is my all-time favorite teacher, Miss Bravado, introducing to us the concept of America being a melting pot. I still remember feeling confused, partly because of the language barrier, but also because I didn't necessarily see my community that way. When I think of a melting pot, I think of a large pot of gold. I think of all sorts of jewelry going into it. I think of rings and watches. I think of bracelets and necklaces. Like, remember the necklaces we wore with our names on them in the 90s? I think of all of that jewelry going into this big pot and all of it melting and fusing and becoming one solid block. Or a cheese fondue, where you have delicious cheeses like Gruyere and Swiss coming together to make one delicious, creamy, warm mixture. Delicious, mouth-watering, sure. But it is just not how I see my community. I don't want to think about my traditions, our values, our customs coming together and just fusing, becoming one. Of course, I want to see my community be seen as one, my community work as one, but a community that is seen for the rich, diverse assets that make it strong. As I see it, diversity should be guarded as an asset. Our differences are our strengths. And there's been a lot of talk about this, actually, in the last few years, about maybe looking at our country as not a melting pot, but using a different metaphor, maybe one that allows for a different take on it, like a salad, where all of the ingredients are brought together by the dressing, or a sandwich where the different layers represent diversity. I too think it is time we start looking at this differently and use a different metaphor. one that allows for diversity to be both celebrated and highlighted, but also while acknowledging the strength in the sum of its parts. Like a soup, for example. When I think of my mother's chicken noodle soup, I think of every single ingredient that goes into making the perfect bowl. I think of the carrots, I think of the potatoes, I think of the celery, I think of the chunks of chicken, and the extra cut spaghetti she would add because she knows how much I love extra noodles in my soup. I can imagine the aroma of the mixture of the cilantro and the seasonings coming together, filling our kitchen. Think about it. Think about your favorite soup. What goes into that bowl? Is it potatoes? Is it leeks? Is it mushroom and barley? Is it beef? Is it ham? Is it peas? I want you to envision taking a bite of your favorite soup and how you can taste each individual ingredient in that soup. Can you taste the sweetness of the carrots? The crunch of the celery? You see, when you're able to see how each individual ingredient in your soup is an indispensable asset to your soup, you're able to understand how important it is for us to value the differences amongst us. In a community like ours, where folks represent different cultures, different countries, different religions, different sexual orientations, different genders, or have different abilities, our collective power should be pulled from the strength in the differences of our people. It is what can make us strong and united. It is what can help us fight hatred, inequity, oppression. Acknowledging and understanding the importance of valuing our differences can help a young person of color succeed as adults. It can encourage them to use their voice and have their voices heard when they're fighting for change. It can help women achieve equity. It can help a trans person live their life feeling safe and comfortable to live their life in their true self. But we must acknowledge the importance of understanding the value in our differences if we're going to really regard them as resources. If we don't allow folks to feel comfortable in their own skin, we're setting up individuals and communities to fail. We're setting them up for inferiority. We're setting them up for subpar performance. Imagine working in a place where the space is not permissive of your thoughts, your ideas, your mere presence, where your only contribution is clocking in and out every day, beginning to end, following orders to the T. Now picture yourself working in a setting where not only is your voice heard, it is encouraged and it is appreciated, where you are part of a group that shares one goal amongst all your distinct differences, where it is okay for you to thrive and succeed as your own individual self. Because you see, when an individual is able to succeed and benefits, the collective does too. But how do we get there? If we are part of a dominant group, maybe never have had to challenge ourselves and understand the importance of valuing differences when we've never had to consider our own. My entire life experience has been around my identities: young, Latina, female, Christian, straight, able-bodied. I have come to learn and understand the way each one of my identities has both challenges and privileges inherent of them. You see, though I am a woman of color, I have the privilege of being a straight woman. And though I am an immigrant, I have the privilege of being documented. I have come to learn and understand what that means, and most importantly, my responsibility. It is up to each one of us individually to look at ourselves in the mirror and consider our identities and think about both the challenges and privileges that we get We didn't ask for them, but we get them. It is okay to be uncomfortable with privilege, but you are responsible to realize that you have it and then do something with it. So that if we're going to value differences, not just celebrate diversity, if we're going to value them, and we're going to help those that don't have a voice or can't use their voice, if we're going to help lift them, it's going to have to come from us. We're going to have to figure out how to take a step back. So tonight I leave you with a challenge. Do we continue to look at our community as a melting pot, asking everyone around us to come together, to fuse, to become one, to assimilate? Or do we start valuing each other's differences? Do we start looking at our own challenges and strengths and figuring out how do we help lift each other so that our communities, our environment, and the individuals within them can thrive and succeed to their best ability? Thank you.